Hello again, everybody. So this is a video over section 9.9 doing the quadratic formula. Hope everybody's having a good day. Move my face around the screen there. Right, you could do that. So just as a reminder, I know I said this in the last video, the section 9.8 video, but you can take the section 9.9 day 2 guided notes and you can get rid of them. Okay, so we are only going to be doing section 9.9 day 1. So I'm not even going to call it day 1 anymore. It's just going to be section 9.9, but you will see it as in your guided notes as section 9.9 day 1. Okay. All right. So let's again kind of go through why we are doing this. Well, we're doing this because we're solving quadratic equations, right? Solving quadratic equations. We know that there are 4 methods to do so. Factoring, which is usually the most convenient method, except if they don't have a b term, because then we can just solve by using square roots, if there's no b term. Then last section we learned completing the square, okay, which will work anytime, but it's a little bit more involved. Okay. Now the quadratic formula, my personal favorite. I don't know. I just like the quadratic formula. Another method that will work anytime. Okay, that's the last method that we have, quad form. Now, the reason you guys will not like this is because it's just hard to memorize. You just need to memorize it. You just need to know it. Right? You just got to put it in your brain and lock it away. Look at my hair. I need a haircut, people. What the heck is going on? I'm going to try to convince my wife to buzz my head. I don't know, though. This up top is pretty thin. If I buzz my head, it might not come back. Oh, jeez. It could be a completely different person when you see me in the fall. Okay. In the fall, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? We could be back in a month. We could be back in 3 months. Whatever. I don't know. If we do come back in the fall, you guys better come back and say hi to me. You might not know what I look like. Maybe I'll go like, I'm not cutting my hair. I'm not doing it. Like I'll go on like a hair cutting strike or something like that. Maybe I won't shave. Like until then. No, I don't think I can do that. All right, let's learn some math here. Okay, get my face off the screen. I think I'm more tempted to get off topic when I can see my face on the screen. All right, the quadratic formula. Again, my personal favorite, because again, it will work every time. And if you know the formula, and you can, it's just kind of like the plug and chug method, if you will. You can just plug it in the formula. It works every time. No questions about it. Okay. So many quadratic equations can be solved by using graphing, factoring, taking the square root. We just talked about all of this. So let's talk about this thing called the quadratic formula. Here it is. I recommend you pause and write this down. I know that it's already there for you, but I would go underneath it and write it down. Okay. Heck, it might be even good to write it down 10 times. Just like get a new piece of paper and just write it down. I know it seems really weird, and I know it seems like big and bad. Don't worry, it will not bite you. Okay. X is equal to negative b. Now, where are we getting a, b, and c? We're getting a, b, and c from our standard form of a quadratic. The opposite of b plus or minus the square root of, then we got b squared minus 4 times a times c. Those are time symbols. All divided by 2 times 2 of my a value. Okay. And again, all you're going to do is plug in a, plug in b, plug in c into the equation, and then just solve. Just start running the numbers. Okay. So there it is. My Algebra 1 teacher taught me the quadratic formula to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. So if that helps you out, the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 is c all over 2a. I don't know. Hopefully you're laughing while you're watching this video right now, because that's pretty comical. But there are other ways to memorize it. I know, like some teachers teach it by the tune of Frere Jacques or something like that. But I didn't learn that, so I'm not going to even try it. Okay. So let's solve using it. Okay. Let's solve using the quadratic formula. So I would suggest every time we do a new problem in this, we write out two things. We write out our A, B, and C. A is 1, B is -1, C is -20. And then from there, we write out the formula in its original form. The opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC, all divided by 2A. And that's a very big point that we make about the all divided by. Those of you who tend to get sloppy tend to like make this 2A just go over the B squared minus 4AC. You have to wait till the very end to divide by 2A. Okay, so the next thing we do is just plug things in. Okay, the opposite of B. Well, this is negative B. Well, this is -1, so it turns into +1. And then we have the square root of, now we have B squared. Okay, so it's -1, put it in parentheses, folks, minus 4 times, I know, can't you like hear me in class yelling at you, use parentheses. Yeah. All right, -4AC, all divided by 2 times my A value. Well, 2 times 1 is just 2. Okay, so everything's in. Now we just need to start chipping away. Where do we go first? Well, order of operations tells us we go into our innermost grouping symbol, which is my square root. So I go inside my square root and I calculate that out. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually run the numbers here, 1 plus or minus the square root of, and I'm going to go into my big calculator here. Did I really just start up represent? Get. All right. Okay, so we've got parenthesis, -1 squared minus 4 times +1, 4A times C, -20. So I get an 81. All divided by 2. Show that step, folks. Show that step. 1 plus or minus, now what is the square root of 81? 9. All divided by 2. Okay. Now, just like we did with our last one, we get two mini equations. X equals 1 plus, why did I write plus or minus? No. 1 plus 9 over 2, and x equals 1 minus 9 over 2, because that's what that plus or minus really represents, right? One positive version of 9, one negative version of 9. So we get 1 plus 9, which is 10 over 2, so x equals 5. And then 1 minus 9, which is -8 over 2, or -4. So my two, it's kind of a squiggly negative sign. So my two answers are +5 and -4. Okay. And that's it. That's the quadratic formula, folks. Okay. So again, the rest of this is just doing more and more problems. So I'd like you to try the next one, pause it, try it, and then see if you get the right answer. Watch the work and then correct as you need to. So again, the first thing that we would do is write out our A, B, and C values. A is 6, B is 5, and C is -4. Okay, so let's write it out. General form, x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Okay, the opposite of b, +5 turns into -5. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so it's 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times -4. All divided by 2 times 6, 2 times a, which is 6. So 2 times 6, which is 12. All right, -5 plus or minus, go inside the square root, start here. So I'm going to plug all that in. You get 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times -4, 121. All divided by 12. So that turns into -5 plus or minus 11. Square root of 121 is 11 over 12. So x equals -5 plus 11 over 2, and x equals -5 minus 11 over 2. So this turns into, it's negative 5 plus 11. That's 6 over 2. So x equals 3. And then we get negative 5 minus 11. So negative 16 over 2. So x equals negative 8. Those are my two answers there. Okay. All right. Oh, it's not over 2. It's over 12. What was I thinking? I was going to say those aren't coming out, right? It's over 12. Jeez. Get those answers out of there. It's late, folks. It's past 10 p.m. I'm allowed to make mistakes. Nobody should be doing math past 10 p.m. All right, so x equals 6 over 12 is 1/2. There we go. I am completely fine with doing fractions or decimals with this, 0.5. X equals 16/12. Ooh, divided by 2 is negative 8 over 6 divided by 4. Yeah, the 4 will do it. 4 over 3, negative 4/3, and that's negative 1.3 repeating if you wanted it as a decimal form. That looks like a little better, yeah. All right, let's keep it rolling. There's part C here. Now, what's weird about part C? It's not in standard form, okay? So I like to keep my A term positive, so I'm gonna bring over the B and C terms. What does that mean? I'm gonna subtract the 5x, which will get me 2 is equal to 3x squared minus 5x, and then I'm gonna subtract the 2. So 0, which is what we want, is equal to 3x squared minus 5x minus 2. And now at this point, that's what we're going to use to define our A, B, and C values. Okay, every time, x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So negative b turns into positive 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared. Negative 5 squared. Use parentheses, folks, when you put that in your calculator. 4 times 3 times negative 2, all divided by 2a. 2 times 3 is 6. So 5 plus or minus. Now I'm going to go in here and figure out what this is underneath my radical. So we do parentheses, negative 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 2, which gives me 49. So that's all divided by 6. Square root of 49 is 7. Okay, so we come down here. We say x equals 5 plus 7 over 6. X equals 5 minus 7 over 6. So 5 plus 7 over 6, that's 12 over 6. So x equals 2. 5 minus 7, that's negative 2 over 6. So x equals, reduce that, negative 1/3 or negative 0.3 repeating. Either one is fine, fraction or decimal form. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. Again, I like to keep my A term positive, so I'm going to actually add the 5x squared over to the other side, make it positive. So 2 is equal to 5x squared minus 9x. Subtract the 2. 0 is equal to 5x squared minus 9x minus 2. Okay, we're in standard form. A is 5, B is negative 9, C is negative 2. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. All right, so we've got opposite of negative 9 would be a positive 9, plus or minus the square root is negative 9 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times 5, which is 10. All right, so 9 plus or minus the square root of, let's figure out what's underneath that parenthesis. We've got negative 9 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 2 is 121 over 10, which is 11. Square root of 121 is 11. So 9 plus or minus 11 over 10. So x equals 9 plus 11 over 10. X equals 9 minus 11 over 10. So 9 plus 11 is 20 over 10 is 2. 9 minus 11 is negative 2 over 10, which is negative 1/5. What's negative 1/5 as a decimal? That's negative 0.2. Okay. All right. Let's keep it moving. Oh, look at that. This is already in standard form. You got to be kidding me. That's cakewalk here. Why don't you guys try doing this one on your own? See what happens. A is 1, B is 3, C is negative 7. All right, x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Again, don't get lazy. Make sure you write that whole line all over 2a. So the opposite of b, positive 3 turns negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times 1, or just 2. Okay, let's see what's underneath that radical. Okay, we got 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 7. I don't know why I'm using parentheses right now. 37. I got to calculate that again. Is that right? 4 times a times c, negative 28. Oh, jeez. Yeah, 37. So if you tried this on your own, you probably got to this point and said, what the heck? So negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 37 all over 2. Okay, so for our purposes here, now, later on, you might be told to do something different with the square root. For our purposes, all I'm going to ask you to do is put it into a decimal form. So if I take the square root of 37 and I actually figure out what the decimal form of square root of 37 is, I get 6.08. We'll round it to the nearest hundredth. So negative 3 plus or minus 6.08, all divided by 2. Okay. So we've got negative 3 plus 6.08 divided by 2, negative 3 minus 6.08. That's a 0, all divided by 2. Okay, so 3.08 over 2 and negative 9.08 over 2. Okay, so I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to say 3.08 divided by 2, 1.54. And then x equals, we got 9.08 divided by 2. 4.54, and that's a negative 4.54. So those are my two answers there. Again, for our purposes here, if you ever get something that's not a perfect square underneath that square root, that's okay. Just give it to me in decimal form. Okay, last problem coming. All right, let's put this in standard form. 2x squared minus 8x plus 1 equals 0. So a is 2, b is negative 8, and c is 1. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So that gives me positive 8. And then in here, this is a negative 8 squared. Again, use parentheses when you plug it in your calculator. 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times 2, 2a, or 4. That gives me an 8 plus or minus the square root of, let's see what's underneath that square root. We get a negative 8 squared minus 4 times 2 times 1. 56. 56, not a perfect square. So I'm going to make it a decimal. Let's see what happens when I turn it. Find the square root of 56. 7.48. 8 plus or minus 7.48, all divided by 4. So that means I got x equals, put this down a little bit. X equals 8 plus 7.48 divided by 4. X equals 8 minus 7.48. All divided by 4. I'm going to do it all in my calculator at the same time. 8 plus 7.48 divided by 4. 3.87. That's one answer. And then we've got the other one, 8 minus 7.48. 0.13. 0.13 or just 0.13. Okay, so those are my answers there. Put 0 in front, just for emphasis. All right, hope we're having a good week, and we'll see you when I see you.